Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024, regular closed session meeting of the EBMUD Board of Directors. Director Marguerite Young is participating via teleconference. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Director Chan.
There she is.
Wow, sorry if you were waiting for me. Director Coleman.
Present.
Just started.
Director Katz.
Present.
Director Lenny.
Here.
Director Patterson.
Present.
Director Young.
Present, having a hard time hearing, though.
My mic was off. Can you hear me now?
Yep,
President McIntosh.
Here. Public comment. If members of the public are online and wish to speak on agenda or non-agenda items, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom. Any online public comment?
No online public comment.
All right, we do have two in the audience, and these are both on, let's see, review and planning. Let's start with Justin. Review and planning of capital improvement projects. Justin Young, followed by Yvette Rivera. Good morning.
Morning, President McIntosh, Board of Directors, General Manager. I gave this quote during our last Planning Committee meeting a couple of weeks ago, but I thought it would be beneficial to give the rest of the Board of Directors hear this out. This is a quote.
Justin, could you speak into the mic?
Yeah, this is a quote from Its Name Was Mud. It's a statement from John W. McFarland, East Bay MUD General Manager before the Joint Committee on Bay Area Regional Organization in San Francisco, California, April 10, 1968. The district has a strong management backed up by a full-time staff of experts on our payroll, not someone else's, and competent employees selected through a district-operated civil service system. The administrative structure is line-oriented, more like that of a successful business than a governed body, because the district is essentially involved in providing a product and a service rather than governing. Salaries at all levels are competitive with private business and other public agencies. The result of this are threefold. First, we have and can keep on our own payroll some of the top experts in the nation: designers, engineers, planners, administrators, legal talent, and financial experts. Secondly, we have an extraordinarily low rate of employee turnover all the way down the line. 20-year employees are common at East Bay Water. Many of the employees of the old East Bay Water Company, who were grandfathered in 1927, spent their whole careers with the district. Some of them are still on the payroll. Thirdly, the district, because of its administrative structure, can do its own planning and its own close supervision of construction. The people who make the decision have a vested interest in seeing that the people's money is spent wisely and carefully. I just want to say I appreciate management, the board listening to how we could review and plan in our future and present capital improvement projects, and East Bay MUD staff continues to look forward to having these conversations. Thank you for the floor.
Thank you, Justin. Yvette Rivera, and the subject is Rivera versus EBMUD, EEOC charge, and request for employment litigation records.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and start. I provided you a different document just now, and it's dated February the 27th, 2023, and I sent it to Derry Moten and all of the board. The reason why I'm giving it to you, it's 9 pages, and it directly relates to this EEOC charge that I filed last Wednesday. And it talks about what's happened to me since I settled my lawsuit in April 2021. It's not been good. And I'm here not just because of me, but because this happens to other people. Now, today you're going to be asked to give, I think, $75,000 to general counsel for Liebert Cassidy and Whitmore. I asked for litigation records. I got to tell you, all of this money that goes towards protecting the horrible employment actions that happen at East Bay MUD totally keeps this machine going. I really hope that the district, these board members, you consider asking the important questions from general counsel and from the employment relations super person. Before all of this money is spent to protect the people in staff that are supposed to keep retaliation, discrimination from happening, please throw a lens on it and look at the complaints and think about whether or not any of this makes sense, because to the common person, it doesn't. It really doesn't. Thank you, I yield.
Thank you. Are there any more public comments?
No further public comment?
All right, then the board will now convene to conference room 8 for closed session and is scheduled to return here for our regular meeting at 1:15. Good afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024 regular session business meeting at 1:15. There are no announcements from closed session. We will receive reports from this morning's Climate Action Plan Workshop and Finance Administration Committee under item 16. Director Marguerite Young is participating via conference. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Director Chan?
Present.
Director Coleman?
Present.
Director Lenny?
Here.
Director Patterson?
Present.
Director Young?
Here.
Director Katz?
Here.
President McIntosh?
Here. All right, please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I believe before we hop to 2024 committee assignments, that Director Coleman would like the floor.
Thank you very much, President McIntosh. A new year often brings change. For me, 2024 will bring the biggest changes to my life in over 30 years. It was exactly 33 years ago in January 1991 I took the oath of office as a member of this board. Coincidentally, and perhaps fortuitously, that was actually half a lifetime ago, as I will turn 66 this year. I've long been focused on service to my community since becoming an Eagle Scout in my teens, if not well before. Some volunteer opportunities are open to anyone. Some require specific qualifications, but to be elected to serve is different, and it is a tremendous privilege and honor. You know, in 1991, I was passionate. As a bachelor, I had plenty of hair, and it was dark. It's not the case now. But what has happened is I have two amazingly brave daughters in my life, and now I'm Papa Daddy and Papa John to three cute little munchkins. As a forester major at Oregon State with a degree from UC Berkeley College of Natural Resources with a major in conservation natural resources, I skipped dipping my toes into the water and dove right in. A good water analogy for today. I focused my efforts on supply, reclamation, storage, water rights, legislation, and increased collaboration among water providers in this great state. The natural resource arena for me has been my niche since before starting college. I've been proud to represent this district in state water and wastewater communities as president of AQUA and president of CASA. I was instrumental in establishing 3 joint powers authorities, Freeport Regional Water Authority, the DERWA, and UMRA. I have served on those boards since their inception. In fact, it's been 77 collective years I've served on those 3 joint powers authorities. A personal highlight for me was collaborating closely with the late Senator Dianne Feinstein to form FERWA. This landmark agreement ensures increased water supply to the ratepayers of EBMUD and to potentially other agencies in drought years. Change is sometimes planned, but it can also be by chance. I've been offered unexpectedly a career opportunity that I must pursue my next chapter. I'm resigning from this board and from my position as CEO of the Bay Planning Coalition, and I have accepted the position as a manager of natural resources with our strong and valued partner agency, the Calaveras County Water District. I'll be relocating from Lafayette to our mountain home in Arnold. I have lived within EBMUD service area, but for all 2 years of my life. When I was studying in Oregon State, I was outside, obviously, the state and the service area. I've lived in Ward 2, all but 2 years more of my life when I was finishing my degree at UC Berkeley. So this is a big change for me on many levels. It will also be the first time since college that I only have one job. I'm excited to focus exclusively on my work at CCWD. I'm expecting my resignation to be effective late February, early part of March, but I'm coordinating that date precisely with present employers and CCWD. This is really a bittersweet moment. I have a strong sense of pride of what I was able to accomplish jointly with an amazing team members from many agencies, but it's really time for someone else to take this charge and give it the best they possibly can. Hopefully with a great deal of transparency, integrity, and a vision for an ever-important district. I'm grateful for my tenure, longer, richer, and more satisfying than I ever imagined 33 years ago. Many thanks to all those who have supported me in this role. I'm truly honored and appreciative of the opportunity to have served, but I really am looking forward to the challenges and changes ahead. Thank you.
Congratulations, John.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to the next chapter of my life.
Well,
And I see Michael in there, and we'll be talking a lot, I suspect.
so I guess that brings us to what has just become very challenging, the 2024 committee assignments. Since John will be coming off, so I need a suggestion as to how we handle that.
Do we do that this meeting?
I
think
hope
we all
not.
need to figure out.
We need to figure out a
Put it in this,
process.
Yeah.
Can we put this issue off?
We can actually defer the issue. We can, the committee assignments from 2023 still stand today.
All right,
And so we can have a discussion after this meeting.
okay.
And I would definitely need to speak with Director Coleman about next steps for him.
All right, thank you.
So we'll defer this item to,
All right.
Could I make another suggestion, which is that we make these committee assignments and then reconsider a different configuration? Just because these committee assignments take into consideration, obviously, that you're off, Lisa, some of these committees.
Well, I will be off these committees, but not this minute.
Right, no, I'm talking about Lisa, though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is
I'll
off
be
the
off.
committees, otherwise you need to still be serving on these committees if we don't adopt this.
Right. Also, I have not been reassigned to committees, so it is productive to have the committee assignments that reflect that Lisa is now board president and I'm in the immediate past role and reintegrating into our standing committees.
All right, so,
What was the effectiveness date of the, congratulations on your new
Thank you.
opportunity, and we've had such a long time working together for many of the members of this board, and you know, your contributions go back to the publication of Its Name Was Mud, where you are, which I think you may be the only member of this board with that long, very long history. So thank you for all of the long record of service that you reviewed. When is the date that you announced? Because I wasn't thinking about committee assignments.
I need to work it out between, quite frankly, CCWD and EBMUD, but it's looking late February or in the first few days of March.
Another month or month and a half.
Not a month and a half, but maybe a month for sure.
So if you adopt at least these committees right now, I mean, we would make it through the first committee meeting because the changes would take effect in the first meeting in February. And we can make these changes today if you'd like, and then we can bring it up for a discussion again in the first meeting in February.
It also sounds like the resignation is not actually, official with an end date. It is a very unexpected announcement that, so.
As of Thursday, I didn't know what I'd be doing.
Yeah, so with that, I think I would agree that we should proceed with the appointments that have been recommended by the
So I'll
person.
move the appointments that Lisa has made.
we need a second,
Second?
all right? And I understand a roll call vote is required.
correct. So that was a motion by Director Lenny and second by
Andy?
Director Katz. Okay. Director Chan?
Yes.
Director Coleman?
Yes.
Director Katz?
Yes?
Director Lenny,
Yes.
Director Patterson, Director Matt Young,
Yes.
President McIntosh.
Yes. All right.
Lisa, so I just want to say, I don't know how some of this stuff is coordinated in terms of the departure of a board member. I do know that Frank, that there was a little party for him, so if there is a need for a board member to be involved and help with that, I'm more than happy to do that.
So am I. Thank you, April. And hopefully we'll work with the GM's office and Risha. All right. All right, I believe I stated there are no announcements from closed session. Everybody's blown away, I'm sure. Congratulations, John. I'm just so happy for you. All right, that brings us to public comment. I have one speaker card for an item that's not on the agenda for public forum. Are there any online public comments?
No online public comment.
All right, so let's go to introduction of speakers. So our first speaker for an item not on the agenda is Butch Carter, Lake Comanche rent proposal. Come on forward, Mr. Carter. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam President. Congratulations, Mr. Coleman, on your next journey. Welcome to the foothills.
Lived up there, had a place up there for 8 years, and I've always said it's God's country.
It's, agreed. I happen to be a resident of North Shore Lake Comanche. I'm assuming that the board received the documentation in regards to this item. The latest one was, and the most comprehensive one explaining the issue was from Mr. Tognolini, who's the Director of Water and Natural Resources. It came out yesterday. The short version is the rent increase at Lake Comanche, there was a formula in place, and we were notified in October that it was going to go to 12.5% increase. We immediately, being chairman of the HOA and a number of residents, we immediately approached the Watershed Committee, who had a meeting in November, proposed a reduction in that rent versus a 12.5 with a 2% min and a 5% cap. The proposal was unanimously approved and recommended by the watershed supervisors and also the CPRAB, which are the East Bay Mud group up at Comanche. It was approved. We were informed that the process would have to go to the Finance Committee. That got changed up to where, and if you read the document from Mr. Toglini, it's very comprehensive of what happened, how it came about, and where we're at on it. The bottom line is everybody's okay with the 5% cap, except they don't want to put it into place until January of '25. We were told and informed, all the parties, we said the only way this could be enacted to January of '24 would be by the blessing of the board, which brings me here to you to present this to you guys and ladies, not guys. So like I said, the short thing is everybody's okay with it. There's absolutely no opposition to it. The 5% increase is more than it's been in the last 5 years. We've averaged 3.8% increase over the last 5 years. It's significant. There's nobody going to be harmed by it, except, of course, if it goes up 5%, that's a hit on me. But my Social Security went up 3% to the tune of $112 a month. California's going to get their 20. California's going to get their 13. Leaves me $75. My rent increase is $72 based on the 12.5%. Real short explanation exam. So we're begging, requesting of the board to approve and authorize the amendment to our rent to be 5% January 1st of 2024. I'm told that this is the right place to bring this issue and to have it approved. And I'm willing to answer any, and we've got about 300 residents up there, 196 units surrounding the lake. A lot of people may not even know that there's residents. Got my 3 minutes?
That was your 3 minutes.
I'm sorry.
Any questions?
Well, perhaps maybe the way to look at doing this, and I understand your plight, thank you, Mr. Carter. having this discussion at a committee so the board can fully understand the 12.5%, why it's there, where your perspective is coming from, and deferring any increase at this point in time until the board, through a committee, has discussed it, looked at it, and made an appropriate recommendation. And I would think that would be the Finance Committee, actually.
Yes, so we did include a memo in your packet this week that explained how this fee came about. It is part of the fees that were adopted by the board when you
The rate.
adopted the budget and the formula on how to do it. What we would typically do if we wanted to reconsider it would be at the mid-cycle budget, which we would bring to you in the May timeframe for you to consider any sort of changes to fees that, because these are part of all of our fees that were adopted.
Well, I won't be here in May, but I think it's reasonable. You know, we had 750 pages in our packet this weekend to read.
Yes.
So sometimes something that's stuck in a memo may get buried, so to speak. I would just, whatever.
That makes sense, John, that goes to a committee. And then it can be totally flushed out. And then those affected can actually come before that committee and really get it hashed out.
Can I still speak? I didn't know about the, we didn't want to bring a busload of people over because we weren't on the agenda, first of all, because of the timing of it. When this thing hit, the next time, an opportunity after going through the process of procedure and protocols, this is our first opportunity to bring it to you, to the board's attention. And the 12.5%, probably 80% of the people that live there are senior. I'm senior, I'm older than him. And I'm just now enjoying the retirement up there. So there's, it's going to impact a lot of those people up there significantly if this 12.5% goes in. So that's why the urgency. If we get hold of it in advance, that'd be great. 5%, like I said, in Mr. Toglini's information, which is very comprehensive, it discusses the model of how this came about. In 2010, we've averaged 3.8, $10, $15 a month increases per year. $72 is huge. But like I said, it's going to eat up my Social Security increase, which, you know, if there's only half of that, I'd still be able to get an 18-pack of beer and a tri-tip. But this is going to, it's going to have an impact for a lot of people up there, and we appreciate your consideration. So I guess my question is, I believe I heard you say they would have to go to another committee. You guys evidently are going off of what I've said because you haven't had an opportunity to digest this. So I just need to understand the process of what we need to do going forward, appeal, or how we can do this. No, I want to repeat it again. The concessionaires okay with it. The EBMUD guys are okay with it. Everybody's okay with this 5% going in on January 1 of 24. It just needed the blessing of the board. And that's documented also.
Were you informed of this rate increase?
We got a letter in the mail October of 23. They have to give it to us 90 days in advance. That's why this new rent won't go into place until February 1. So it has not been put in place now, and I'm told by the accountant that it's a one push on the Excel spreadsheet to do this. So we're, for the lack of timing, I mean, that's why our first opportunity to bring to you guys was right now.
So, and I know, Mr. Carter, you want to present your case to the board. The board is able to discuss agendizing it for a future committee meeting, et cetera, and the mechanics of doing so, and ask some clarifying questions under the Brown Act.
So if we bring it to the committee, the next finance committee, as you know, is the second meeting in February.
Planning committee, did you say?
Finance
Oh,
administration.
finance, okay.
That's where we would normally bring budget items.
We have a workshop planned, I believe, the same day, or do we not have a workshop planned?
We do, we would have to squeeze in an extra committee, which, we would just have to start early.
Yeah, I think that would be, if we do anticipate public comment, I think that could make scheduling difficult, so we might have to consider rescheduling the workshop or having a special committee meeting. So we might need to think about that.
I'll
when
take that
scheduling.
into consideration, but what I'm hearing from the board is to agendize it for finance administration in February.
Yep.
Okay?
So I guess there wasn't a motion to hold this in advance until later. So that's why,
Can't do that, it's not agendized, yeah.
okay, I don't know unless I ask, right?
Yeah.
No, you're correct.
Okay, so how would we become notified? So will this then become an agenda item for the next meeting, I guess is my question?
We'll agendize it, and I would say just work through Mike Toglini's staff just to get the information about when the meeting is going to come up.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just a clarifying question for staff. So since we're not going to have a meeting for a couple weeks, what happens to the rent increase? in
It
the
would,
mean-
it would
in
go
the
into
meantime?
effect.
So it goes into effect?
Yes.
For now, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. The January 9th minutes will be included in our next board meeting packet of February 13th.
President McIntosh, excuse me, I believe that Yvette Rivera has a non-agenda item on her card, along with the multiple items for consent and determination.
Well, I see agenda items 6, 8, 13, 15, and 16.
I know, but I'm a public comment.
And then number 3 is also an agenda item.
Right, but
I don't see any
It's
non-agenda
on the
item.
non-agenda item, I have it, line, it says I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about. I wasn't specific. May I speak? Thank you.
You can speak.
I appreciate that.
But let's take this one at a time. So number 3 is first.
Actually, it's my first thank you, Risha.
it's okay. On the card, there's one line for non-agenda, and then the next line lists all of the agenda items for public comment.
All right, we're going to have to do better with this because these are all agenda items.
They're not all, but I could fill out separate cards. I did ask the Secretary of the
We'll just do it.
District.
We'll get better at this. All right.
Sounds good. It's the
Go
beginning of the
forward.
year. I appreciate it. So I want to start off by telling Director Coleman, congratulations. You completely deserved to get the pre-PEPRA rights. And it's obvious that you would have left the district years ago if you would have known the truth. I noticed that your wife is here. You and your wife deserve the benefits of working in civil service and the benefits that were afforded to all of us pre-213. So congratulations. I'm sorry that you had to witness what some of us regularly go through at the district when it comes to the handling of even retirement and employee actions. I just spoke to a guy over at the print shop who retired, well, he thought he had his retirement on hold, and he left UC when he turned 60 and found out when I told him that he was supposed to cash out at 60. And he was 64, and he was going to wait till he was 65 because he hadn't retired yet, but he thought he had reciprocity because the district told him. I want to go on and just finish by this part of the meeting by saying that I provided you documents. And I provided, the most important document was the EEOC charge that I just filed against, really, it encompasses everything that's been done to me since my settlement in April 2021 by all the retaliation that I've been subjected to by David Briggs, Tony Montano, Ed Betancourt, David Carlson, Derry Moten, Cindy Sharon, Adam Smyer, just for starters. I hope that this board, I'm going to talk later about the contract that you're going to approve for litigation, employment litigation, but I hope the district decides to look closer at General Counsel's office and what you're ratifying, because to turn a blind eye means that you're in agreement with all of this discrimination and retaliation. I yield.
All right. So your next item, Yvette, is number 6. I mean, it says number 6.
I'm sorry, so if we can go ahead and move to the consent calendar, and it looks like we have multiple items that will be pulled from consent.
Yeah.
Listed on Ms. Rivera's speaker card.
So-
We have item 10,
Pulling from consent, we have item 5 from Justin, item 6, item 8, item 10 from Eric, item 13 from Yvette.
President McIntosh. We have item 3 from consent, and then item 13, 15, and 16 are on determination and discussion. So if we deal with 3 through 10, then we can, 3 through 12, and then we can move to determination and discussion.
All right, what you said.
I move the consent calendar, which constitutes all items that were not just mentioned.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we need a roll call?
Yeah.
We do.
All right,
Director Chan?
Yes.
Director Coleman?
Yes.
Director Katz?
Yes?
Director Lenny?
Yes.
Director Patterson?
Yes.
Director Young?
Yes.
President McIntosh?
yes. So does that mean we go on to item 6,
We go to item 3.
3? All right. All right, Yvette?
I'm just going to provide a just general objection to any kind of contracting that happens in the district. I want everyone, including the board, to remember that our retirement is paid by full-time employees that work at the district, not contractors. So I hope that the district takes that in consideration before contracting out work. Thank you. I yield.
So item 3 is for replacement pumps. I just want parts. Is that the item that you're commenting on?
Yes.
Item 3 was listed on the speaker card, yes.
I'll move item 3.
All right. I'll second. Do we need a roll call?
Yes.
All right.
So moved by Director Lenny, second by President McIntosh. Roll call vote, Director Chan?
Yes.
Director Coleman?
Yes.
Director Katz?
Yes?
Director Lenny?
Yes.
Director Patterson?
Yes.
Director Young?
Yes.
President McIntosh?
Yes. That brings us to agenda item number 5 of the consent calendar, and that's Justin Young. I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Jimmy was supposed to give a presentation on this item.
We, only if requested by the board. Right now, I don't know what your comment
Okay,
is.
I don't know the rules, but okay. It's typical.
Yeah, if you make questions and
That's fine, that's fine.
Staff will reply, and if the presentation is needed, we can do that then.
Yeah, that's fine. I had a meeting yesterday, and I appreciate the meeting with our Director of Engineering and Construction, Jimmy, and our HR manager, Cindy. I appreciate the teaming and communication. They never really reached out in the past to talk about some of the staff concerns. I've been up here from probably 8 years talking about the concerns, and the concerns are still here. That is with the increase of work that we have been contracting out with a lot of our water treatment plants. Jamie's gonna give you a presentation. $11.2 million for pretreatment work planning, which is not a design set, not anything constructed, just planning. Well, $11.2 million for somebody at a $300,000 salary, that'll be 43 positions a year. If it was like 150,000, that's 85 positions. So it's just more of the same. I'm trying to bring this to your attention. Last time I came in front of you, I talked about the concerns, how districts is in this, path right now where they don't value district knowledge. And I appreciate some of the staff who reached out to me as the very first time that people reached out to me, not in my local 2019 family, not my electrical engineering family, but my local 444 family, my local 39 family. So people are listening. They're at a time now, morale is the busiest we've ever been. The morale has been the lowest it's ever been. I'm here just talking from the heart. I wish, I could talk after Jimmy, because you could see the slide. It's not true indication. And if he showed you the slide that he showed me yesterday, it's a slap in the face. It's saying the district, the construction cost is more cost effective than design, in-house design. And they'll show you numbers, and I've requested the numbers that staff would like to see. You're gonna approve $11.2 million. You approved multiple water treatment projects, all different pipeline projects. Let's see how those projects did. Let's see how much we spent. Let's see how much district force is needed if it was a contracted out job. And this is why I want a third-party audit to do it. Because the numbers that are shown to you are the numbers management wants you to see. You have the floor. Thanks for your time.
I just have a question. So I know you came to the planning committee. This has been before the planning committee, this item. And you've made the case or tried to make the case that you think that the district could actually save money by doing more of this work in-house. Is that right? Can you elaborate on that?
I'm not anti-contracting out work, so that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the lack of planning for these projects. First, we started, okay, we don't have enough, this is what we get. Contract out committee, we don't have the, what's the right term? Everybody's working on higher priority projects, or we don't have specialized expertise. That's what we see, okay? And that's for the design, right? Now we're saying, let's take away the planning portion of it. Let's put CIs in that. And the more and more work, of course you have no choice to contract out because everything's a higher priority. And what's next? Pumping plants. I don't know why I quoted that. I didn't need quotes. Pumping plants. Reservoirs. It's coming. I saw one for accountants. So the lack of planning, we pride ourselves in being leaders, and we are. But I think we can do a better job of being less reactive and more proactive. And so this is why I think we need to learn from our past to learn from the future. And we're so focused on being, future focused. Let's learn from the past so we can really be future focused. And I think if we looked in the past, we'd show, oh yeah, we don't have enough people to really do this. So we have no choice but to, let's just pay. Let's open our wallets. And that's the way we do business. And if we were not a public company, we'd be broke.
All right, Jimmy, I wonder if you could address some of the issues that Justin is bringing up, and again, for the benefit of the full board. Particularly issue around planning, pre-planning, and how we think about projects that are coming through the pipeline. I know we have a lot of capital improvement projects coming down. This is just about one today, but.
No, the presentation is basically the same presentation that was at the planning committee. But I can respond to the question. So we as an organization and as in the engineering department, we do look long-term at projects. And there is a lot of work that needs to be done. Those projects are evaluated during the CIP process and are based on the needs of our facilities to meet, to either rehabilitate infrastructure, to meet climate change needs, to improve resiliency. And we look at all of those projects and kind of rank them in terms of what needs to be done and also schedule them out. The reality is there is a lot of work, and and in the time frame that is most desired to get the work done, not all of that work can be done in-house. I know Justin has mentioned in the past, the option is you slow things down. But then you run the risk, and I'll use this particular project as an example. This is for improvements at the Walnut Creek treatment plant. And as was mentioned at the Climate Action Plan workshop this morning, this particular project helps to mitigate and adapt to the climate change that's coming. And these projects take a long time. So you could delay this until some point in the future, but there's still a lot of other work that you would need to kind of rejuggle and reshuffle. Pumping plants, reservoirs, there's a lot of infrastructure we need to maintain. So for a little bit more perspective, on the water treatment plant projects in particular, comments has been made about, we're doing a lot of that work with consultants. And we looked back over the last 5 to 10 years of how many water treatment plant projects have been implemented. And if you look at the dollar value of construction for all of those projects, about 50% of them have been done by district forces or district forces-led design, and about 50% of them have been consultant. So we do look at each individual project. We try to keep it in-house if possible. This particular project, again, as an example, has some specialized work that we do not have the capability to do. Ballasted flocculation with active flow, the dewatering portion of the project, centrifuges. We've not done one of those on the water side before, and then the ozone component. So those are areas that I think we need to have somebody who is specialized in those areas to do it. The last thing I'll mention on this point is, as a result of some of the previous comments on previous projects where we have let it out to consultants, we deliberately on this one are taking this from the start to about 30% design. And it's more than just planning
So this item's more than just the planning?
This is more than just the planning. We've been planning on this, and we have a basis of design report that has been developed ever since the FSCC project was in place. All of that work has culminated to this point. So this project is actually to take it from the end of the planning phase, which culminated in a basis of design report, to the 30% stage. And that involves laying out all the facilities, making sure they all work together. And this includes three specific processes that we don't have the experience in. And we're taking it to 30% design.
Jimmy, if you don't mind, I'm looking at the slide that, again, we had a benefit of in the Planning Commission, or
Yes.
Planning Committee presentation, slide 8, that has this timeline thing. And I think it would be helpful if we could see that while you're describing this process and understanding, because
If you could pull that up.
if that's okay. Keep going, yeah, it's slide 8.
Oh, slide 8.
And again, and you can use any other one that you
Okay,
want to
yes.
describe. But this I thought was helpful in trying to understand it.
Yeah, so this is kind of what I just described. We have done the planning. Which culminated in the basis of design report. So this contract deals
pre-design.
with the pre-design phase. And so basis of design, it says we need all these different facilities to improve the treatment at Walnut Creek. The pre-design work takes us to 30% design, which involves laying out the facilities, making sure that they all interact and work together, doing the hydraulic the hydraulics between them and making sure that the hydraulic grade line is all in order. And we do have also piloting of the active flow process, which is one of the specialized processes that's been included. All of that will happen through pre-design, and it basically sets the scope and the overall overall set of facilities that are going to be needed. Following that will be the detailed design, where you take that scope, and at that point, there really are no more changes that we want to make. It's like, this is what we want, and design those with all of the relevant standards and things that we need. Now, I know that there may be a question about, could some of that work be done by district forces? And that's possible, and that's one of the reasons that we're only going to 30% design. Once we know everything that needs to be there, there may be components of the facilities that we could actually do in-house. And that's something that we'd have to evaluate at the time that we finish the 30% design.
I mean, I was struck by, in our agenda packet, it has the, why should this work be done? Can we select a different consultant to perform the work? And it says reasons why we can't perform the work entirely with district forces. Alternatives not recommended because district forces do not have the resources, do not proceed with the work. But there's not one that says perform the work partially with district forces. And so that's, I think, you're pressing that question.
And I would recommend against that, because all of these facilities, which include 3 specialized processes that we don't have the experience in, all need to work together. And so getting it to 30% design makes sure that they all work together. Once you have that in place, then maybe you can break out certain components where we do have the expertise to actually design those elements.
So you're saying in the next phase there may be
in the
room
next
for
phase
that?
there may be a possibility, and we would have to evaluate that. I think there still would be a concern about splitting up a design of an overall facility, because you then are splitting up potential responsibility and accountability for the overall design, and we need to work that out. But I think that's easier to do once you know everything, it's in place, and the layout and all of that. But you still need to think about those things.
And what's the role of district staff in this phase? Is there a support role? Is there and are we staffed for that?
Yes. So,
and Jimmy, maybe there's just a couple things. Slide 11 might help you out with that discussion. And I just want to note that Director Young's hand's raised as well.
Okay. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Okay, it's not advancing for me.
Click one time.
Do you want me to go, or wait? Why don't you answer the question at hand, and then I'll go.
That's right.
Okay. So, yes, and this was presented during the planning committee meeting in terms of roles and responsibilities of district forces. So we have accounted for district forces participation. In the engineering and construction department, we are overall managing the project. We're reviewing drawings, design concepts, equipment selection and procurement, constructability review, the oversight of CEQA and environmental mitigation impacts, and any work that district forces would have to do to construct, to help construct the facilities, we would be overseeing that. Our facilities maintenance and construction staff would be participating in workshops and reviewing pre-design submittals, and coordinating asset management. Water operations staff would participate in workshops and review pre-design submittals. The planning group in O&M planning and integration of the project into our existing water treatment plant operations. So all of that will be looked at, and we have district staff doing all of that work. And then, like I mentioned, there's the pilot testing for the active flow system. Our operations and maintenance staff will be performing that pilot testing, participating in workshops and reviewing the submittals. And we also have our regulatory compliance and workplace health and safety staff that will be overseeing. All this will happen through 30%. that ensures that we have a project that we know will work, that fits together well, and will achieve the goals that we intended to.
All right, go ahead, Marguerite.
Marguerite?
Yeah, so the, couple related, questions here. So one is sort of back on, back in the timeline, question. Is there a stated element when in the lockdown, scope and issue new contract, phase that says assess, availability and practicality, or whatever of, elements, to be done by district forces? Is that spelled out in your work plan? Or, because it says design consultant at the top, it doesn't say district / contracted out as it does in the preliminary design phase. Is that a change that you're agreeing to or putting in?
Yeah, and I see your question there. And that probably should have been different and said design consultant or district forces or combination of both, because the intent has always been to go through 30% design, and that's the only thing that's included in this contract. That's the defined scope. It only goes through 30%. So the agreement and the contract itself does not say what will happen afterwards. That is still for us to decide. So I would say the slide is not reflective completely of the process. So at 30%, that should, the zero. The
Contract with Corolla would just say, you're good through the pre-design process. It's our own internal planning that would have a demarker of saying, at following the completion of pre-design, we will assess, the availability or ability of district forces to participate in next and subsequent phases.
That is correct.
Okay, it'd be good that if that's, spelled out somewhere. Second, just in terms of the 11 million, how much was spent in the preliminary? What was the cost of the preliminary design phase?
I don't have that. About 2 to 3 million is what I'm hearing.
Okay, and then what's the overall projected project cost?
For, you mean all the way through construction?
Yeah.
We think this is probably a $300 million project.
Okay, so we're talking about 11 million on pre-design, which is, it's a big project.
Jimmy,
Relatively.
There are multiple phases for this project.
Yeah, clearly, but I mean, it's 11 million out of a $300 million budget.
Yeah, and Clifford's clarification was the 300 million is just the first phase. So the second phase actually, because we don't know when that would actually occur.
Right.
Maybe even more, but 300 million is about the dollar amount just for the first phase.
Because the design covers the future phases, which will come online depending on conditions.
That's correct.
Okay. And how much of the preliminary design was done by district forces?
Pretty much all of it was done by district forces. So the basis of design reports that culminated the planning phase was actually done by district forces.
Okay. And as part of that, is their recommendation, or does their report include recommendations about whether there is capacity for district forces to do the work? Is that part of it or no?
No, the basis of, it was not part of it. The basis of design report was specifically focused on the work that needed to be done for the project. So it did not look at how it was going to be implemented.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I want to give Justin an opportunity to speak again if you'd like to, since it's after the presentation. All right, come on up.
Yes.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Yeah, thanks, Jimmy.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for giving me a chance to speak. So I think what the big thing lacking here is these projects, $300 million, $12 million. There is 16 currently projects going to go on at the treatment plants. These projects need support by district forces. We do not have enough people to adequately support all of these projects. And that is my point. We could keep on throwing money at other contracts for engineering support, because that's what happens, right? It gets constructed, but it's not district forces supporting it. It's engineering services during construction contract. Then what? District has to support that because it falls flat. Once again, this is just this is what repeats. So I wouldn't be surprised, this passes, it's gonna come back to you. Okay, district, we don't have enough resources. Here's another $80 million to finish the design. Here's another $300 million to construct it. Plus another contract to engineer and support whoever designed it. So it's just a lot of money that we're throwing, and I'm just trying to bring awareness to the board how the district is spending money on capital improvement projects. And I'm glad you're asking the questions because they've never been asked before. And I'm glad, being somebody who is been in water treatment plant design for 20 years, can bring that to your attention as firsthand experience. So go ahead, sorry.
Keep raising.
So Justin, so it sounds to me like actually what you're saying is something different. You're not saying, you are saying we have a huge, we all know this. We've been in these infrastructure workshops. We've approved budgets for huge infrastructure investments over the next, 20, 25 years, basically is what it's going to end up being. So I think that, at least for myself, is sort of has been an eyes wide open. We're going to spend a ton of money to face the future. What I hear, and clearly that can't all be done in-house. Yeah. It's one-time builds of things, hopefully. But what I hear you saying, I think, and tell me if this is right, what you're saying is that the slide that Jimmy had up of what the district roles and responsibilities are with this project, and the same exists for other projects, is what you're saying is that we do not have, your complaint is we don't have the level of staffing necessary to support the functions under the district roles and responsibilities for these major infrastructure projects. Is that what you're actually saying?
That's correct. And not only am I saying that, it's what we currently do now at our current projects now. UV projects, chemical system. Yeah. We just don't, it is the goal, I get it, but we just don't have the resources, not just in engineering, talk about facility maintenance, to operations. It's thin.
All right, Marguerite?
Just, I know we've talked about this in the past in terms of staffing up for all these, and different projects come in waves. And right now happen to be on a wave of building a lot of infrastructure because of the need and the WIN Act money and everything else that's come down the pike. When do we, I understand where Justin's coming from and what he's saying. At what point do we find the right balance between the number of employees that are needed to do the work so we're not having to contract out, but at the same time, when the work flows goes down, we don't have people who we don't have enough work for them to do? When is the right point on that? I mean, how are you trying to approach that, Clifford?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a really good question, and this was something that Jimmy spent a lot of time looking at. I mean, he built an entire, and you can speak to it, Jimmy, but you built an entirely new resource model because you're looking at this bubble in capital improvements. Also factored into this analysis is, when people at least are eligible for retirement. So you have the ability to bring some people on if you think people are eligible for retirement just as workforce development. But you have the other issue that you raised, Director Coleman, which is you can hire a lot of people, and then once that bubble is over, which, that resource loading, if I recall correctly, Jimmy, that big bubble ends in the beginning of the 2030, like 2031, 2032. You run the risk of having a lot of staff, because then we get to the routine work, the pumping plants, the reservoirs, the pipeline work, that we don't have these huge treatment plant projects, and you have a lot of staff with no work to do. And it's not an exact science, but I think Jimmy did something that we've never really done before, which is a very detailed resource model. And I'll let Jimmy speak to it some more.
Yeah, you summarized it exactly, Clifford. We did spend a lot of time. My principal management analyst developed a resource loading model. As Clifford said, it's not an exact science, but it does give us, the ability to based on how we've been resourced for projects and in-house design projects in the past and construction, we know approximately how much it takes at a very high level. And this resource loading model has allowed us to kind of see that and then selectively target specific projects where maybe if we do consult them out, it brings the level of resource needs down to a certain level that is kind of even until about 2032, 2033, and then a lot of the big projects are done and it drops down. Now we could change, that plan could change. You could decide that you want to spread things out even longer. You could decide, or maybe circumstances might arise where you need to do things a little bit quicker. What the model allows us to do is be able to model that. And what we've done for this most recent capital improvement budget is to have it level for about the next 10 to 12 years. I don't pretend to say that's exactly what's going to happen, but it is the plan that we have put in place for now, and we have targeted certain projects to be, and they're usually the larger projects because those require the bulk of the resources, to be designed by consultants and supported during construction with consultants. But district forces are still involved. We are still the overall responsibility for managing the projects through design. Our construction staff is still responsible for managing the construction with the contractors. We are still involved, and it is a balance. As I think was mentioned earlier, there is a lot of work, and there is no way that you can just do it with district forces. So we came up with a plan to balance that between district forces, with consultant support, and looking at the overall schedules. And that's the only way that you're going to do it.
But what I heard Justin say is that some of these projects might be delayed, and you talked about a model in which you actually scheduled the projects. Maybe you schedule it out, you schedule it at different times. And so since you have that model, is that something that you've shown to the staff, that you've shown to the unions? And have you been speaking with all of the people that are involved about that model?
If you're talking about the details of the model, the details, we don't go through the details with all the staff, but we do talk about the output and the results from the model.
Yes,
with the staff and what it shows.
So what does it look like if you spread the projects out? Because what I'm hearing is that there's a concern about being able to manage so many projects in a short time frame. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, so I think there's a few things. I mean, there's certainly the mechanics of just moving a project out and just spreading it out. The other consideration that Jimmy has to have is how these projects are related to each other. Like, if you push out one project, it pushes out potentially many other projects that are linked to it.
Right.
Especially on the treatment plant level. The other thing, of course, that we can never really factor in is, the model is based on the budget that the board approved for the capital program. But, this is going to come up for discussion again next year. If the board says, spend more money or spend less money, that also affects the capital program, which is also is another reason why you have to be cautious. I mean, if there's any chance that the board next budget cycle says, we want to cut your capital budget by $100 million, you don't want to be stuck with a lot of staff that you suddenly don't have work for. And so there are a lot of variables that go into this model, including, and so we, while Jimmy can just push projects out and just say, let me flatten it, it doesn't take into account the relationship between the projects. They're not independent projects.
And so that can't be accounted for in your model. I mean, I'm really more concerned about the quality of the conversation between the district forces and your office and what you're doing, and really whether or not that's open and whether or not there's willingness to listen, or there's rigidity. I mean, I don't know. This seems to me like something that maybe shouldn't have been on the consent calendar. This is big issue, very complicated.
So, as Justin mentioned, we had a meeting yesterday, and I think it was productive, and we did agree that we need to have more conversations about it. And I think that can happen. I think but I think it will also, no matter how you go about doing it, and I think like you said, the conversation is important. The outcome will still be a balance of what you do with district forces, what you do with consultants, and the schedule. And given the infrastructure that we need to maintain, adapt to climate change on, upgrade, I think we will be challenged to deal with that, and it will change from year to year. So I would agree that maybe we could have better conversation about what is being looked at. But I think fundamentally, and we have looked at it. I mean, my managers, project management staff have all kind of looked at this at various levels. Now, it may not have. I would agree that it has not gotten down to the local 2019 staff, even though we have said, the outcome of it. And so maybe we need to walk through all of that with them. But it isn't rocket science, but it's also not very easy.
Right. And I know the outcome is great, but like how you get there too is really important.
So a couple things. One comment that I do think, I've done some work with models too, and I know how important it is the inputs and the formulas that are within the model. So the models can have the sheen of, well, that's what the model says, but it really are dependent on what goes into it. So I would encourage you to work with, 2019 district employees who are asked to do this work or support this work to make sure that they think that the inputs are correct. And one question along that line is, does and I don't remember you mentioning this model before. I'm glad that such a thing exists and the planning that goes into it. I really encourage that. I think it's great. Does it take into consideration, again, this other chart, the district forces and responsibilities? If we're moving forward in this, we kind of say, well, we don't have, the district forces, again, to do the whole thing. I was struck again by the BD1 that kind of gives these three options. And my interest, and you called it out, was, what about partial? And you gave a good reason and a good answer to that. But does the model take into that consideration, well, just to have all this work and all this work contracted out, do we have enough support staff to take care of these other things as well? And so they're not doing the work, but they're doing, this is pretty significant, a lot of roles and responsibilities that way. So does the model take into that consideration or predict that as well?
So the model does take into consideration the engineering and construction staff. So it is limited in that sense. there is probably
But
some.
not the design staff?
Oh, the design staff. So that's what I mean,
Okay,
engineering
engineering is
design.
design,
So
yeah.
everything that's within the engineering and construction department, it does take into account those resources. Now, there are some resources, whether it's regulatory compliance support or workplace health and safety support, or purchasing support. All of those things, those are not in the model. But and those are things that we do have to consider. But the basic, the core group of people that actually implement these infrastructure projects, that is accounted for in the model.
Okay, my final comment is, you know, besides the fact that I've appreciated your presentation and information you've given us and responsiveness to all the questions we've asked, I think that, you know, I am interested in what gets contracted out. I'd like to see as much work as possible done by district forces. I'm a believer in unions forces, and I'm a believer in supporting our unions here for that contracting out, for work within as much as possible. On the other hand, we always say we're proud that we've never had layoffs at East Bay MUD. And I don't want to be one of the directors who changed that historical fact, because I think that's a good thing when we're trying to get good employees to say, hey, we're not an organization that beefs up and then, you have to worry about whether you're going to have your job 3 years from now or 5 years from now or something like that. So I'm very sensitive to that as well. And I'm glad that the district is too. So
All right,
I'd be ready to move this item if there's other discussion.
let's have a motion. There's nothing further.
Just want to make a brief statement. I agree with a lot of what my colleagues said, particularly Director Chan, in emphasizing the dialogue that we expect. This is a very substantial sum for for contracting out of planning and engineering work. I don't dispute that we should be contracting out work that we do not have the capabilities to perform, that we do need to reach out to specialized firms for the specialized services. What is not clear from this presentation is the extent that we have been able to maintain in-house use of district forces alongside this proposed contract. We've heard a little bit of dialogue about that, but the materials in here don't directly address that, and that remains a concern. And I think should be something that is that the board should be able to get that information when that's key to any dispute. So those are my general considerations about this. I think it's really important in the budgeting process that we take into account the approach that Director Lenny and Director Young have identified, that in the budget, we should be budgeting the appropriate amount of positions, but in no event would we want that those budgeted positions to have a drop-off in utilization. That's not what I think we should be doing. But I do think that there's a way to look at the amount of revenue that is coming in. We, for major projects like this, we are able to use our bonding capacity and can use debt service to get through a particular year where we're going to have a particularly high capital program. So I don't think we should rule out those sorts of techniques, but our staffing does need to be at a relatively consistent level. What's missing here is a really clear idea that our planning and engineering staff can be utilized with a possible uptick in work. And I would strongly encourage that kind of work to occur at either the planning committee or the Ledge HR committee, and really in the first instance through the meet and confer process. So this gives me a lot of pause, and I'm glad that we've had this discussion. But I would like to be, in the future, if we have these sorts of disputes, I would be expecting that kind of information. And I hope that we can address these sorts of questions well in advance of next year's budget. Thank you, Madam President.
And not on the consent calendar as well. All right, we have a motion and a second. Did I hear a second?
No.
Is there a second?
I will second.
All right, Marguerite, thank you. Roll call vote?
Director Chan?
Yes.
Director Coleman?
Yes.
Director Katz?
Yes.
Director Lenny?
Yes.
Director Patterson?
Yes.
Director Young?
Yes.
President McIntosh?
Yes. That brings us to item 6, and Yvette Rivera.
I'll make this short. I mentioned in my SEP speech that there were 15 graduates from that program. I also provided you a district affirmative action document from 2014. Each of those programs encompassed what Peralta College Foundations wants to do. And I'm just going to say that if you look back at the people that went through those programs, there aren't very many people here, and it would be in the best district, in the best interest of AFSCME and other union employees if you had career ladders for everyone and supported promotional opportunities, and then you brought in people from the outside. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Come on, people.
Bill?
Second.
Bill was a second.
All right.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Director Chan?
Yes.
Director Coleman left the room. Director Katz?
Yes.
Director Lenny?
Yes.
Director Patterson?
Yes.
Director Young?
Yes.
President McIntosh?
Yes. That brings us to item 8, Yvette Rivera.
Thank you. I know that the board has it in front of them to approve $75,000 for Liebert Cassidy and Whitmore. I did ask the district to provide me invoices, and I did get an incomplete list of invoices for all of the litigation covering my issues, my retaliation and harassment and discrimination complaints since 2014. I hope that the district reconsiders always hiring, I want to call it the gold standard of litigation to protect those in general counsel's office that provide free access, free support to people at the district that retaliate and discriminate against all employees, but mostly those that have the hardest time to protect themselves, the disenfranchised, the minorities, women, and union employees. Thank you, I yield.
All right, thank you, Yvette. We've got a motion. Do we have a second
Item 6 still.
on item 8?
No.
Which item are we on?
8.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, General Counsel, did you have anything you wanted to say about this? Wanted to ask, because it did come up.
I'm not sure I understand the nature of Ms. Rivera's complaint fully. The district has a duty to defend the Office of General Counsel, and the district have a duty to defend the district against claims. And we evaluate claims, we determine if they have merit, and if they do, then there's a settlement or some sort of working with the employee, and if they don't, we defend. And litigation costs depend upon the reasonableness of, for instance, a settlement demand versus the merits of the case. And so for that reason, we are asking for an approval of the contract of Liebert Cassidy Whitmore, which provides employment law support for various matters at the Office of General Counsel.
I asked, we couldn't really talk about this in closed session today because it wasn't on the agenda in closed session, but I can ask now, and if I go beyond where I can ask, you'll let me know. What I would like is, and you know, we've asked in the past, is cumulatively what we're spending on different cases and issues. To know how far, quote unquote, down the rabbit hole we may be going in terms of expenditures. In a case like this, at least in the privy to us as board members, to see what these cases are that are related to this contract or other contracts for that matter, what we spent to date and what the anticipated cost may be, because, yes, I understand we have a general counsel's office, we litigate, we protect and everything else. But as we make these decisions, I think we need to be as well advised as to what the costs are, have been, and where they may go, and what they're related to. And again, I understand that's a closed session issue that we cannot see, the general public cannot see, but in closed session, I would like to know what those are. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
Not in this
I
case.
understand the
Let's
request.
say contract X, not this one.
May I just give you some figures? Hajro case was $331,000. Zafra case was $66,000. The Gutierrez case was $216,000. The only reason I bring this up is because I've worked at other agencies. An effective HR department stops this stuff in the tracks. Please consider holding off on accepting $75,000 without delving in. And I appreciate both Director Coleman and Director Chan taking a breath and stepping back and just asking questions. Thank you. I yield.
I'm not willing to hold this up, but I do agree, John, that we should have a list. So we actually know what's going on across the board. I mean, it only makes sense. So we don't see something in a capsule, we see the big picture. And I think that's extremely reasonable to ask.
We can direct it if we so choose, that's our.
Well, I hope we don't have to direct it.
Sure, I can prepare something
Yeah, we've
for
asked
you.
general counsel, so I expect that he'll do that.
Yeah, so basically, not for public consumption, I understand, and it doesn't matter who the contract may be with.
Yeah,
What are the various,
all contracts.
all contracts, what are the various costs then associated with whatever the situation or case may be?
And what the issue is they're
What the issue
associated
is,
with.
and what the anticipated costs are going forward. Because sometimes, in anything, you can spend so much, and then it's like, oh my God, we gotta keep going because we spent X amount, and we can't turn around. And that is not a good way to do public policy.
Yes, again, it may be hard to state the anticipated costs going forward because
I understand,
it really depends on how far a plaintiff wants to carry their case. So for instance, in Ms. Rivera's case, she brought the case all the way through the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal. So that was 6 years of litigation, and there was an expense associated with that.
Sure.
And so just in terms of a report, how far back would you like me to go?
I think whenever we're having something like this come before us, 2-3 years at least, I mean, I'm not familiar with this firm. I'm sure they've been before us before. I don't recognize the name of the firm. There's some firms you recognize because we're always doing work with them, land use or whatever else.
Derek, why don't we, settle on 4 years?
Sure.
And after we do that review, if we need it to go back further, we can make that request. Make sense?
And would you like me to just focus on employment law or all
No, I
outside
think
council
all,
matters?
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to make sure that we also include the legal costs that we've incurred on the Coleman cases.
Okay.
All right. So do we have a motion for item 8?
We had a motion from Director Lenny.
Oh, okay. And the second was,
We didn't have one because we had more comment.
all right, Bill, you want a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Marguerite. We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Director Chan,
Yes.
Director Coleman,
Yes.
Director Katz,
Yes.
Director Lenny,
Yes.
Director Patterson,
Yes.
Director Young,
Yes.
President McIntosh.
Yes. That brings us to item 10, Eric Larson, President, asked me 444. Come on up, Eric.
President McIntosh, while Mr. Larson is coming up, Yvette Rivera has withdrawn public comment on the rest of the items on her card.
13, 15, 16? Yes. All right. Thank you. Much appreciated, Yvette. Hi, Eric.
Good afternoon, President McIntosh, board members, general manager. My name's Eric Larson. I'm president of AFSCME Local 444. I come before you today to object to contracting out our core bargaining unit work, specifically contracting out wastewater electrical maintenance work. AFSCME has been coming before you for decades with concerns about understaffing and objecting to contracting out our core bargaining unit work. Past President Ruben Rodriguez came before you many times with concerns about understaffing in the wastewater department. Past President John Brasino had also come before you objecting to contracting out concerns resulting from understaffing. I myself have come before you when the committee is met in the small training rooms next door with concerns about electrical safety hazards due to understaffing resulting in deferred preventative maintenance, rendering electrical panels unsafe to operate. This all came to a head in 2019 with a series of major sanitary sewer overflows, flooding the influent pump station, nearly causing catastrophic failures of our main units, and complete failure of Pump Station M, resulting in raw sewage discharges into the Oakland estuary. Then Director Eileen White finally recognized the need to add additional electrical technician positions. We had 8 at the time, usually with 1 or 2 vacancies, due to the lag in hiring after retirements. She wanted to flex staff 2 of our operator positions to electrical techs, but we objected. We didn't have enough operators at that time. In 2019, we had the lowest number of journey-level wastewater plant operators on record. We objected to flex staffing our operators and instead agreed to a short-term contracting out of electrical work while the district added 2 additional electrical technicians for FY24. Then Eileen resigned, and we were left to negotiate with interim director Don Gray. We agreed to adding positions in FY24 and that we had an understanding that there'd be some lag in recruitment and onboarding. We then received this memo from Glenn Dombeck notifying us of the intent to contract out $350,000 of work and reflecting the agreement that the duration of the contract would last until, quote, additional electrical staff, permanent positions to be added and funded in FY24 budget are hired approximately by December of 2023. That's what it says in this memo, December 2023. Well, they didn't even start the recruitment until December 2023. They won't be able to onboard these new hires until spring of 24. And in the meantime, 2 of the 7 electrical techs signed their retirement papers, and 1 more is on the way out. We're losing decades of institutional knowledge of highly technical and specialized equipment, and no one to train. This memo says finish the contracting out following the hiring of 2 electrical tech positions anticipated in 2023, December 2023. That was the agreement reached with Glenn Dombeck. Now, Amit Singh has taken over, and I'm highly confident. I'm highly impressed with his leadership and his understanding of the need to staff the facilities with highly skilled technical trades worker and retain institutional knowledge. I think Amit is doing a great job for the wastewater division, and I'm confident. But here we are, increasing this award by increasing the $350,000 award by $250,000 because of a failure of recruitment to get it done before the loss of 90 years of institutional knowledge. I know Vincent James is working like heck to get this recruitment done, and that he will, but none of this would happen. This whole system would collapse without the work of AFSCME Local 444. And when you make an agreement with AFSCME 444, you stick to it. Thank you.
That was our last.
Could we get a staff response on that?
Sure. Let me, the recruitment, yes, I would agree, it had taken some time. The recruitment did close. As I understand it, we received over 100 applicants and 71 have met minimum requirements. We do need to hire positions, the electrical positions, both on the water and the wastewater side. The exam is going to take place early next month, so in a few weeks. And again, as Eric noted, our goal is to get these positions filled by springtime. In the meantime, I mean, if we don't award this contract, it just means that some of the work the maintenance work doesn't get done, and then when those positions start, there'll just be a backlog for them to work on, to deal with. And what we'd like to do is, when they start, not to have that backlog. And so that's why this contract is needed, because it did take a little longer to get those positions filled.
Okay, as with the wastewater, or I'm sorry, the Walnut Creek treatment plant, the issue is in some ways less about whether we approve this than just kind of understanding, learning some lessons from the discussion that we have. So I'd be interested to hear, again, from staff about the agreement that Eric was talking about. And whether
Yeah, can you speak to the agreement? I mean,
as stated in the memo, it was a goal to get the recruitment done by December 2023, but due to, all the other recruitments, concurrent recruitments that HR is going through, it didn't happen. I agree with what Eric stated about the critical needs for electrical technicians' work at the plant. There's no disagreement there. I wanted to recruit it probably in July, but it's just not possible to go through the whole recruitment process and have to have the other list also expire, which happened in April of last year. So it's just, and then other department are also trying to recruit at the same time. So there was a lot of backlog in the recruitment process as well. I think James is here too. He can speak more to it. And this work that we are proposing is just to complete the backlog of work until we are able to hire the new electricians, which we hope to get it done by April. The test is scheduled for in February, the first Saturday. As Clifford said, 71 applicants called back for interview for written test. So we're doing a lot of outreach this time too, to make sure it's known and the news is spread that we're looking for the positions here in the district. The market is as you know, for electricians.
So was the agreement perhaps maybe too optimistic? Maybe shouldn't have been.
At the time, we thought it was the most reasonable, but for whatever reasons, it's just we just got delayed.
Okay.
That satisfy you?
Yeah. All right, thank you, Amit.
All right, so that's item 10.
I'll move item 10.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay. We have, Bill was the first second.
Oh, okay. Didn't hear that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Yes.
Director Coleman?
Yes.
Director Katz?
Yes.
Director Lenny?
Yes.
Director Patterson?
Yes.
Director Young?
Yes.
President McIntosh?
Yes. All right.
I tried you for the longest consent calendar
I
agenda,
tell
but I
you.
appreciate the time you allowed for it. I really do,
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I'm a good person.
You are, Lisa. Thank you.
I know. Bill said we thought we'd be here all night. And trust me, that came from Bill.
Yeah.
All right, so that, Clifford,
Yes, so next is item 13, which is adopting a resolution to confirm the standby officers that are listed in your packet. Let's see, please inform the secretary if you have any potential candidates or candidates to fill the vacancies that remain in your ward. And we can open up to any board discussion before the board takes action on approving these standby officers.
I'll move the item since I raised this, gosh knows how many years ago.
on my ward, Ward 1, Risha, I had Dr. Ioka Nurse.
Microphone. Dr. Nurse needs to send in her information so that it can be vetted by staff, and then the board will need to consider the appointment.
Okay, so
And
she
so
hasn't
we-
done that yet.
I have not received any information.
All right, okay. Got it.
It does look like several board members have vacancies, and I'm, you know, the standby officer who had previously served as my second standby officer just simply did not have the ability to commit to the role this year. But I think many of us will probably be looking at those vacancies, and we'll probably see this item again later in the year to fill those vacancies once we have a
So
number
there's
to
a
move forward.
vacancy, Ward 1, 3, 4, 6, and 7.
Yeah, this is Marguerite. I don't know if it's not probably appropriate under this item, but I would like to revisit the necessity of having 3 standby officers.
So,
Because it's hard. I tried actually all last year I ended up with all 3 of my people going off, and I was able to fill 1 of the 3 seats, and I don't know, I went through quite a number of people that were taking the request seriously and just determined that it wasn't within their, they just didn't feel like they could commit to it. So I'd just like to revisit whether we need to have 3.
let's have that discussion. Which committee is best?
It's actually a board
I'll
discussion.
figure out the right committee for that one.
All right,
I'll move approval.
all right. We have a motion from Andy,
Second.
a second from John. Roll call?
Director Chan?
Yes.
Director Coleman?
Yes.
Director Katz?
Yes.
Director Lenny?
Yes.
Director Patterson?
Yes.
Director Young?
Sorry, yes.
President McIntosh?
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to the water and wastewater system bonds. I think you're aware that we're proposing to issue water and wastewater system revenue bonds to support our capital improvement program. These will be issued as green bonds. We did discuss this morning with the Finance Administration Committee, and the committee unanimously supported the issuance of these bonds. We have our Treasury Manager, Robbie Hanna, here, who has a brief presentation before we'll ask you to take action on this item.
Okay. Good afternoon. These items are the reason why you have a 750-page packet, so I'm sorry about that, but the presentation is short. We're going over item 14.1 and 14.2, the issuance of water revenue bonds and wastewater revenue bonds. And as the general manager said, this was presented to the Finance and Administration Committee this morning. Excuse me. Here's a summary of our plan of finance over the next month. We plan to issue water revenue bonds in an amount not to exceed $525 million, and that's to provide $275 million for capital projects and to refund outstanding bonds for debt service savings. We also plan to issue wastewater revenue bonds to fund $25 million in capital projects, and we have a maximum amount of $300 million, a not to exceed amount of that. Okay. As we discussed back in September, when we provided the plan of finance for the year, we plan to issue the water and wastewater new money bonds as green bonds. They'll be labeled as green bonds, and that means the proceeds from the bond issues will be used for environmentally beneficial projects. And then to select those projects, we're using the criteria that was adopted by the board back in March of 2022 called the Guidance for Issuing Green Bonds. And then, as I said at the beginning, in addition to issuing bonds for new capital projects, we're also issuing bonds to refinance outstanding debt, and that's to save money for debt service savings. We'll likely be refunding about $213 million in our Series 2014 bonds, and in the current market, that savings is about 17% of the refunded par. That's about $37 million on a present value basis. So there's a lot of savings there to do this refunding. as part of this bond issue, we're taking the opportunity to amend our bond indenture, which is the legal document under which we issue bonds. It's a chance to put in some modern provisions because it's a relatively old document. We're removing the word subordinated throughout the document because at the time when we first adopted it, there used to be something called senior lien bonds that aren't around anymore. And so we're removing that word because the term no longer applies. We're also making some modifications in order to bring some modern standards. We're clarifying our rate covenant, updating the provisions that allow us to issue additional bonds, and updating the requirements on when the district provides its annual financial statement. So these are all pretty straightforward changes to our bond documents. So this is item 14.1 and 14.2. For 14.1, our recommendation is to authorize the issuance of the Series 2024 water revenue bonds and approve the execution of the bond documents in the packet with a total par amount not to exceed $525 million and a maximum interest cost of 5.75% under a negotiated sale. And I guess, I don't know if this is done, is to, the recommendation, I'll do both recommendations. So that was 14.1, 14.2, the same recommendation here, but for the wastewater revenue bonds, it's a separate item, to authorize the issuance of those bonds with a not to exceed amount of $30 million and a maximum true interest cost of 5.75%. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead.
Could you remind me, when we issue green bonds, is there a benefit to us in terms of who it gets marketed to, or it's a lower interest rate, or there's higher proceeds, or something like that?
Yeah, it's a good question. Most buyers of our bonds are going to want our bonds because they're highly rated California municipal bonds backed by a well-known entity in the market. But when we issue them as green bonds, it also there are investors out there that have a mandate to invest money in things like green bonds, and so this opens it up to them. So it could broaden the base. It doesn't. It's a market that's still developing. We helped develop it. We were one of the early issuers of it back in 2015 when we did our first issue, and we've done a bunch since. And so I guess by issuing these as green, already most of the projects we do would be considered green. And by doing this, we're help growing that market. We're potentially bringing in buyers for some of our maturities that that maybe wouldn't otherwise be there. We aren't counting on it lowering our interest costs. You can't know for sure, but anything you can do to bring in more buyers can certainly help. There's not a giant differential in the municipal bond market right now. The key buyers are looking for tax-exempt California municipal bonds from a place like us. Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you, I appreciate that.
I'll move 14.1 and 14.2. And Robbie did answer a lot of the questions at the committee meeting this morning.
All right, we have a motion and a second. There's no further discussion or questions. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, roll call, sorry.
Director Chan left the room. Director Coleman?
Yes.
Director Katz?
Yes.
Director Lenny?
Yes.
Director Patterson?
Yes.
Director Young?
Yes.
President McIntosh?
Yes. All right.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, we have Dave Briggs here to provide our water supply update.
Okay, thank you, Clifford. Good afternoon, President McIntosh, members of the board. And when you're ready, Arisha. Go ahead and click on it. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, so first off, just showing our water production through essentially the first half of the year. We are about 4% above last year. Recall that last year, FY23, included a summer where we were still under drought restrictions. So we've come up a little bit since we've come out of the drought, but a really modest rebound so far. I do have to admit that the precip totals that I have here are a bit out of date. This was finalized last week, and we've had a fair amount of precipitation since then. So I'm going to show you these numbers, but read off a few others to get you up to speed with where we are right now. So in the East Bay, we are now up to 9 inches of precipitation, and that's 65% of average. with forecasted another 2.5 inches to come. So it's likely that January will actually be about normal, if not in excess of normal for the month. So that's good. McKelmy, the upper watershed precipitation, we are at 18.6 right now, which is 80% of average, so we're getting better. The last couple of weeks have been wetter than average, so that's why the percentages are going up. And we have another 3 inches forecasted in the next 10 days, including what is so far a good event in the middle of next week, and that's 8 or 9 days out, so you have to take that with a grain of salt, but we're still in a wet cycle here. So upcountry may be normal for the month of January as well. These numbers for our snowpack, again, the red line is where we are right now for this year. We're still below normal. We are at 46 inches right now, and 83% of normal upcountry for the snow depth. The water content of that snowpack is still unfortunately relatively low. It's at 42% of average for snow water content right now. But again, there's more coming for the rest of the month of January. And giving you some statewide perspective here, you can see the totals for the snowpack in the northern, central, and southern Sierra. They are also below normal. They've come up recently in the last week based on what we've seen, so these numbers are a little low. And the picture on the right is a shot of our upper McKelmy watershed as shown from the Bear Valley Ski Resort. So you can see how much snow is reached up there at about the 8,000-foot level. It's nice to see. The statewide snowpack that I just showed you in the previous slide is also relevant here as we look at statewide storage. So what's shown on this slide are a lot of the project-based reservoirs for the Central Valley Project, federal, and the State Water Project for the state. You can see that a lot of the storage throughout the state is above average for this time of year. Last year, of course, was very wet. So the state allocations and the federal allocations should be good. They're not going to be 100% yet unless it gets substantially wetter for the rest of the winter. But they're still in good shape. And should also mention that soil moisture levels are also very high because we had such a wet winter and spring last year. So a lot of good momentum coming into this year, even though we haven't seen normal precipitation yet. And what does it all mean for us? This slide summarizes our storage on the left in a table, and on the right forecasts our storage for the rest of this water year. We're above normal for this time of year in terms of a long-term average. We have that capacity available, as shown there. We're at 80% capacity, but all of that is essentially, we're at what we call rule curve as we maintain that storage space for local precipitation and the snow melting up country. We carry that storage over at about 620,000 acre feet with where we are in late January. You can see 3 potential scenarios showing a range of hydrology for the end of the water year. And even that red line, which is a conservative 90%, what we call a 90% hydrology, which means that 90% of the years that we've seen on record are wetter than that red line, and we're still well above drought stage. This is an old figure. I think the latest forecast we have for a 90% exceedance puts us at 570,000 acre feet of carryover storage, which is well above a level that we need to be concerned with. So a conservative hydrology from here forward is still putting us in relatively good shape. And that's what I have for you today.
Okay. All right.
Questions? Okay, so next, we want to share with you again, employees who received service awards between October and December of 2023. Sorry.
Nutrients?
Took it out of order for me. Okay, so we have Don Gray here to talk about the work that we've done to reduce our nutrients at the wastewater treatment plant. And I just do want to take a moment and just say that this work is only possible because of the great work of a lot of staff led by Don Gray. And so we should be very happy and proud of all the work that they've done. So Don, take it away. Good afternoon. The purpose of this presentation is to update you on the nutrient issues at the wastewater treatment plant. But just a little bit of background before I start, and there are 37 wastewater treatment plants, POTWs, or publicly owned treatment works, and that makes up 2/3 of the nitrogen load to the San Francisco Bay. These agencies have a service population of 2 million. Many different treatment technologies are used in these different treatment plants, and there's a pretty wide range of permitted flows and a pretty wide range of individual dry season nitrogen loads. So these treatment plants, these 37 treatment plants, including the district, make up BACWA, Bay Area Clean Water Agencies. And combined, BACWA has contributed over $16 million to the scientific study of nutrients in the San Francisco Bay, including monitoring, modeling, and special studies.
Before moving on, the colorful slide is is begging for interpretation. So what are the
I knew I shouldn't have.
what are we to make of the color gradient, and how how the what's being measured? Does the salinity of the ocean matter, or is this really just specifically nutrients?
No, it's not salinity, it's depth. It's water depth. So the yellow color you could see is on that. You can't see it really well, but you can see that that's really shallow, and the very deep blue is deep. And
I
you can
see. Okay,
in
so
the
it's
ocean.
not the actual nutrient level, but
No.
but it sounds like the nutrient level can correlate with depth. Is that the reason why we're interested?
I have to apologize. This slide is really to show where these different wastewater treatment plants are.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
So the limiting nutrient in the San Francisco Bay is nitrogen. So when we talk about nutrients, we can just forget about the nutrient and plug in nitrogen. That's all we really need to worry about. But just as plants need nitrogen to grow, so do algae, which is also a plant. Most plant fertilizers use ammonia, nitrite, and/or nitrate to supply nitrogen to plants. These three nitrogen compounds are collectively called total inorganic nitrogen, or TIN. And the reason that that's important is because our discharges, our wastewater treatment plant discharges, are regulated based on TIN. Before the harmful algal bloom in the San Francisco Bay in 2022, which caused a massive fish kill, there were really no adverse impacts to the San Francisco Bay due to excess nitrogen. The regional water board planned to just, because of that, because there wasn't any impacts, the regional board planned to just cap the TIN discharges, so that as long as you stay below what you're doing at the present time, you don't really need to include nitrogen treatment. But what happens is that as the community grows, you get more nitrogen being discharged. So I think most of you will remember the wastewater treatment plant master plan that came out a couple of years ago, and that was before the bloom. And what we intended to do is, when our growth rate went high enough, we would do right size or R2. Our blood waste alone add 8.5% of our TIN to our discharge. So if that wasn't enough, we would go to side stream treatment, and that would remove 20% of the nitrogen, but at a cost of $100 million. The third one is mainstream treatment, which we didn't really expect to have to worry about for years in the future, if at all, and that cost over $2 billion.
So this is our nutrient roadmap from the master plan. We're kind of going down the road here. And we were looking at low-cost solutions, which included the district's biological nutrient removal process, or BNR. And I said it, but I shouldn't have said it, not nutrient, nitrogen. Then explore right-sized R2. But you can see that the nutrient cap was really what we were focused on. If we needed to, we would go to side stream treatment, and if we really needed to, way down the line, we would go to mainstream treatment.
And what does that cost on way down the line for mainstream treatment?
$2 billion, over $2 billion. Yeah, so that is almost impossible for the wastewater department to come up with. So the nutrient roadmap from the wastewater master plan, we looked at low-cost solutions. We looked at exploring the right sizing R2. But the main thing, again, was load cap. But when the harmful algal bloom happened, the regional board said, this is a game changer. And we're not looking at just a load cap anymore. We're looking at 50 to 65% removal of what you're already doing now. So the side stream treatment really didn't offer much, as only providing 20% removal. So it slid us right into mainstream treatment. So the biological nutrient removal system that we were talking about earlier is what we were looking at, biological nitrogen removal, BNR. So we are fortunate in that we can split up our biological treatment system. And you can see this is an aerial view of our treatment system. We can split it up into 25-75% split or a 50-50 split. Now, we have done this before in the past, but not to really operate two side-by-side different treatment processes. So it did take us some time to get to that point. And right here, just to give you an idea, the blue shaded part is our A side, and that was our BNR test battery. The other side was our control. So there might have been this perception that this all happened in 1 year, but it didn't. We started in 2018 to 2019. We looked at preparing the full-scale plant for split battery. And then in 2020, we were able to actually operate these two different processes, the BNR side and then our regular side by side, in a full-scale oxygen-activated sludge plant. The pure oxygen is what makes it difficult, and this is the first time that anywhere this has been done. And so we were able to do nitrification in 2020, just about all of it, going from ammonia to nitrite and nitrate. And then TIN actually removes the nitrite and nitrate and converts it into nitrogen gas, which is, nitrogen is 78% of air, so it's not really a pollutant. The 2021 73% TIN removal actually was published in the California Water Environment Association magazine, and I'll show you a little quick one of that. And then last year, in 2023, we were able to treat 50% of our flow at 65% TIN removal. This is the publication here of what we did, and you can see on the right that graph shows how we were able to slowly get our removal up to almost 75% removal. Okay, so why is this extraordinary? Well, the district staff operated the first known full-scale pure oxygen activated sludge process to substantially remove nitrogen, and that's anywhere. And then in the summer of 2023, staff was able to, with the 50% treatment with our BNR process, able to remove 30% and actually a little more than that of our discharges to the San Francisco Bay. Stopped blood waste last summer, and that added another 8% reduction or 8.5% reduction to our discharge. So we were able to, with the combined TIN reductions, we were able to almost get to 45% removal of nitrogen from the San Francisco Bay from our discharge. Staff will also continue, and I'll talk about this a little bit more on the next slide, to boost that so that we're actually treating more than just 50%. This in-house treatment process, as I've already said, can save the district over $2 billion. So the next steps are meet our district DNR process goals. What we want to do this summer is treat 75% of our flow, and then next summer treat 100% of our flow. We only operate this process during the summertime. That's when it's really needed, and that's when our regulations are going to be based on. And then the next step is to transfer the BNR process to our operations staff, and that will become a routine operation. We're going to continue to work with Regional Water Board to adopt fair nitrogen limits. And then a couple of other things. We're also looking at the alga itself that caused the harmful algal bloom in our lab with some notable support. And then we'll also continue to evaluate near-term alternatives to control HABs. So that's all I have. If there are any
Amazing.
questions.
Should we be high-fiving yet?
Director Young has her
Thank
hand
you.
raised.
Great.
I've been astounded by this work since I first heard about it a number of months ago, and to know that you've been actually working on it for 5 years plus is something new to me, and even more impressive. I'm just so proud of the prescience and imagination that ingenuity that you've all brought to this. What do you think the ultimate, when we go to 100%, what do you think the load reduction is going to be?
Well, that should be, if successful, that should be about 65% removal. And that would be, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And that would be from our discharge.
And how replicable do you think that this strategy is for other dischargers to follow?
It's, well, I think other pure oxygen plants are looking at us, and they've already started to work on their own system. So yeah, it is replicable. The only thing is this is almost a 50-year-old plant right now, just that biological process. So it's got a lot of its own quirks, and those are some of the hurdles that we ran into. So it's not as easy. It's not a straight shot across, but I think that we've learned enough that we could help others with.
Right. I'm thinking that if this is, it's almost too good to be true, right? But it's great. And then for the other thing that we've been somewhat concerned about is that, I'm thinking about the blood here in particular, we were able, if I'm recollecting correctly, we were able to identify, rather than that blood going to somebody else to create more nitrogen discharge, they're actually taking it, they're disposing of it in a way that will not increase nitrogen problems. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the goal. And right now, what Foster Farms is doing is they're looking at composting it, so it's a fertilizer. And so, that would be a help, I think, to, farmers nearby.
Although it didn't end up in the bay.
It won't end up in the bay. They do have, they separated it out now, and so the thicker part is going to composting, where the lighter part can go to a wastewater treatment plant. And their option is to go to Santa Rosa. And that discharge does not go to the bay, it goes to the Russian River and then out into the ocean.
Wow. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Just great.
Yeah, great report. Amazing.
The water board very satisfied with the direction that we're heading?
Oh, yeah. They're looking at us as being kind of one of the leaders that have kind of taken a foot forward on this. What they're talking about now is going to a much stricter, as I was saying, removal rate. And there are plants that can't really do it yet. So we're getting a 10-year, they will be able to do it within the next 10 years, but we'll hopefully be able to do it a lot quicker than that.
Through SFEI, the Regional Monitoring Program, are we receiving funds to help do this, to study it?
Are we?
Yes,
No.
East Bay MUD.
No, we're giving
money
to SFEI.
You're giving money to SFEI for the studies? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And BACWA is not at this point either. So we're doing it on our own.
Okay.
Anything we should know to temper the good news here, possible mutations of algae?
Yeah, okay. Well, one thing is that it's an old plant. It's 50 years old. So it's going to need some upgrades. It's going to need some, some help, some capital
These upgrades
projects.
that are not already on the calendar in the CIP plan, or?
No. Some are, and we've made some progress towards it. But I think we need to do more along those lines, and maybe add processes so that we can, have a little bit more flexibility, making it easier to operate. And because right now, all of our basins, everything is in service right now when it's wet weather. So we're only able to do this during the summertime.
Is that the reason why it's only can be done during the summer? I thought that was a weather or hot weather.
Yeah, it just so happens that that's when the regional board is going to be looking at our discharge. That's the only part of the year that our discharge is really going to be in violation if we go over. So it's and right now the major impacts to the bay are in the summertime.
All right, well, great. I don't think we can just handle good news, so thanks for tempering.
Just had to go there.
Yeah.
All right, we
Okay.
have one more presentation.
Thank you, Don. Yes, so now we're going to talk about the employees who've received service awards between October and December 2023. And we have Chad Thigpen here to provide a brief update and start the presentation. And while you're coming up, I just want to share the speakers' bureaus at your places, as well as within your packet, the interdepartmental committee annual reports. So Chad, take it away.
Good afternoon. My name is Chad Thigpen. I'm the Manager of Employee and Organizational Development, and I truly am honored here to represent the district in presenting the service awards for the time period of October through December of last year. So these service awards are a part of a larger employee recognition program, which has 4 components. So there's the longevity service awards, but there's also the peer recognition program, local celebration, and employee recognition month, which takes place in September. So in terms of the service and retirement awards, The employee service awards are given every 5 years for every 5 years of service, and includes a district pin, certificate, and gift. And then when you reach 20 years of service, you receive a wooden water drop. And retirees may choose to receive a belt buckle or a belt buckle emblem placed on a vase. Retirees with 25 or more years of service may choose to receive a wooden plaque. So we fortunately have some people here in the room with us with some of these major milestones. So I'm going to start with Willie Wells, who's actually in the back of the room. So if you could if you could stand up, Willie. Thank you for your 35 years. 35 years. Thank you, Willie, for your service. So you can see here we have 3 employees with 30 years of service. And we also have some additional people here with 25 years of service. So we've got several of them. So if you can all stand up, I'd appreciate it. So I'm going to start, we've got Dave Carlson in the back here. So thank you, Dave. Juan Valencia. Yeah. Juan Valencia. We have Michelle Workman here. And then we have Dave Gonzalez. Thank you for your service. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your service.
So this continues, and you can see throughout this presentation, you're going to see pictures of people receiving their awards. So you can see here Dave Carlson receiving his award and Michelle receiving hers as well. So I continue through the list here. So with 20 years of service, we have these 5 individuals. And again, we have some pictures here of them receiving their awards. So Heidi Benenson on the left receiving her award, Lisa Gualco receiving her award, and then Eric Nielsen receiving his award. And then 15 years of service. We have quite a few with 15 years of service as well. Give you a chance to look that over. 10 years of service. We actually have 35 employees who reached 10 years between January and March. We have a picture here of Karen Bellecci receiving her award from Director Sofia Skoda. And then the list continues here, so I'll give you a chance to look that over. And you have a picture here of David Gallen receiving his award for 10 years of service as well from Max Lowe. And Max is fortunate enough to have 2 employees reaching 10 years of service. So this is Mildred Rodriguez receiving her award as well for 10 years. And we have 5 years of service. There's actually 28 employees that have reached 5 years. You have some plumbers here. Aaron, from left to right, Aaron Green, Robbie Pence, and Jeff Ehlers. More recipients of 5 years. And in the picture, we have Jasmine Levitch. And the list continues for 5 years of service. And I just, as we're looking over these lists, I just want to acknowledge really their service reflects their commitment and their loyalty to the district. Really committed and loyal employees add value to the district, and their experience and knowledge of our system significantly help us achieve our mission in numerous ways. So additional pictures here, Miles Moak over on the left, and Marissa boys congratulating Sarah Rahimi Ardabelli on the right. More employees with 5 years of service. So, any questions?
No, exciting.
Thank you, Chad. That's it for my reports.
Thank you. So we're not doing the Human Resources Annual Report. Interdepartmental committees.
That's just attached for your reference.
Okay.
It's just, we have a handful of standing committees, and they report out on their accomplishments for the past year and their plan for the upcoming year.
Okay, all right then. So, reports and director comments. Are there any?
You have your committee reports if you want to go to item 16.
Well, the minutes from the January 9th, 2024 Planning and Ledge Human Resources Committees were included in the agenda materials. The board met this morning for the Climate Action Plan Workshop, where staff reviewed updates to the district's climate action plan and provide a presentation on the state of the science related to climate change, relevant regulations and laws and specific actions of the district taking to achieve carbon neutrality and adapt to climate change. We will now receive an update from this morning's Finance Administration Committee meeting.
Well,
There you go.
yes, this morning, the Finance Committee met, and most of the meeting was run by John, but I'll give the report. The monthly investment transactions reports were given by staff. The oral reports on November and December, quarterly financial reports, payroll, investment, disbursements, and real estate summary. Both item 1 and 2 were passed by the committee and recommended to the full board. You had already approved the investment reports and the monthly transactions as an earlier item on our agenda. The EBMUD Series 24A and 2024B water system revenue bonds. There was a presentation, and we saw how those bonds are being intertwined with the 2024 A and B to give maximum return and save money for the district. In the Series 24 A and B wastewater was revenue bonds, much the same thing. To the credit of the Finance Committee of EBMUD, they continue to find ways to make our money serve us better. And that is what they do when they capture bonds that are in the end of the road, moving those bonds out, capturing that money and reinvesting it. It brings back a greater return to the district, something like, 37%. But these are the kinds of things that I think keep us financially solvent And I just want to say the committee today was very thankful to them for that work. I share that with the committee. That's my report. I'm stuck with it.
Thank you, Bill. Other items for future consideration, please submit to the general manager's office. And that brings us to director comments.
President McIntosh, I would like to acknowledge that Director Young had to leave the meeting at 3:30.
All right. All right. Are there any other verbal director comments or reports?
Congratulations, Lisa, for your first full meeting.
Aha.
Nice job.
Thank you. I'm not pushing it, huh?
Lisa.
Thank you, Doug.
I wanted to thank folk. Some people have phone calls, cards. My older sister passed away unexpectedly in the East. And she led a full life as an educator, personified. Her credits and whatnot, later I will be sharing with you. Risa made some copies of her biography. But I did want to say, I really miss her. She was my shero, the one I looked up to. And her work is captured in the highest places in the country, in the departments of education, national, even out here on the West Coast. She was instrumental. And I remember one thing that happened to me when I was a consultant to Mayor Lionel Wilson, City of Oakland. And we had a crisis in California. The black kids were not entering into the state university system. They were almost absent. And so that crisis led to the governor having a special conference. It was held in San Diego. And Lionel suggested I accompany the superintendent of education for the Oakland schools to that conference. And I said, education is my forte. Why do you want me to go? He said, you know as much about education as anybody else around here. You've helped with so many special need kids. You go. And so I was lit out. And my wife handed me a paper as I was walking out the door. And I read it all the way to San Diego, front to back. That paper was written by my sister, who gave information on the national status. And that paper was used as the guide for the whole conference. And the fact that I had read it, I took a little credit for reading it, but I had to give my sister the credit for writing it. So I was her representative as well as the mayor's. So that just goes to show you how a family can come together. And I use that as an example because here at EBMUD, there's opportunities, as you saw in all the presentations today. And believe it or not, some of you sitting out there, and some of you who are listening, and some of you who are exiting, have all brought leadership to EBMUD. And you're a credit to your profession, and your contribution will count, because the ship will keep rolling, and we'll take your wonderful contributions as part of the makeup of a great platform which others will build on going forward. Those are my 2 cents.
Good ones, Bill. Good ones.
Thank you, Bill.
Director McIntosh, before we adjourn, I just realized that we were remiss in reporting out from closed session. So I'd like to do that now on your behalf, if I may, on the
I'm
initiation of
sorry, I said
litigation.
there were no announcements.
Yes, and I think that's my fault. We've been
All right.
having file access problems. So I don't have the script, so I'm going to read directly from the statute. But at this afternoon at closed session, the board did approve by unanimous vote of all, roll call vote of all board members present, the initiation of litigation against one party. The particulars and the parties shall be disclosed once the action is commenced upon request of any parties.
All right, thank you, dear. Yes.
So I'm sure that at some point, we're gonna have more time to comment on John and thank John for his service, but I just want to take a brief moment to say congratulations, John. So happy for you. And to say that I will miss you.
Thank you very much.
So will I. All right, with that, we are adjourned.